everybody. It is so good to see you. Today is just going to be a solo podcast. And I want to talk to you about my book. We've all done it. I know some of you have read it. And if you haven't, please get out there. There's links in the show notes and in all different places, but please check it out. And because what I want to do today is to talk about the book and the next step in the discussion. Right. So for those of you who haven't read the book, I want to, or if you've read it and it's been a while, I want to remind you what my intention was in creating this work. First and foremost, it was to highlight that there are common scenarios that every leader or employee will find themselves in at some point. That there is rarely situations where it is new or it has never happened. So if you're finding yourself dealing with drama of some kind, there are lessons to be learned from people that are around you. So I'll give you an example. In one of the scenarios in the book, we have a chapter called What's That Smell? And it's really around being or working with or for a leader that is burnt out. Okay, so how many of us have worked for a leader that we knew was running on flames? We could see it. They could not. And the challenge of that is you know that they are making choices and decisions that make them their own worst enemy, which is so challenging and so frustrating. And the truth of it is they can't get out of it without some help. Right? It usually takes something massively breaking, almost like an intervention style to get them to realize how far they have fallen in their process and what is going on. So that is so you realize if this is you, you're not alone, right? The second reason I wrote it was because I really wanted to drive some compassion that we've all been there at some point in time. You know, I made an intentional choice to tell stories in my book about my less than stellar actions and my less than stellar moments. I have made these mistakes. And candidly, I will probably make some of them again. Why is that? Because we are human. We're not robots. And sometimes, again, it may take more than one time to learn a lesson. And so I just want to be candid that it's okay to make these mistakes. It's okay to be in these scenarios and say, I can't believe I screwed up last time. I've screwed up again. It's okay. Forgive yourself. It's going to be all right. And particularly in the book, I wrote about 7 specific scenarios. And I chose these intentionally because it's what I heard the most when I was talking with people and researching the book. And I like to tell everyone if these 7 things have not happened or if you have not seen them, just hold on. Eventually they will. So again, we're just driving that compassion. And also I wanted us to kind of laugh at ourselves a little bit. We've all done something we're not proud of. And I can honestly tell you that with space and time, I can look back and say, just how stupid was that? I can laugh at the inexperience. I can laugh at the good intention, but the terrible execution, and wanting to create space for you to do the same. The next thing I wanted to do, which again was so important with the book, was not just to say, okay, here's some traditional scenarios. You know, have you seen this? And if you had, I wanted you to start to think about what kinds of behaviors feel toxic to you and why. So other things that came across very clearly in doing research for this is not everybody finds the same behavior toxic. So a great example of this is when you have a leader and you talk to people that are on his team or her team or their team, and you have some people that absolutely love them and some other people that absolutely hate them and think that's the most toxic leader they've ever worked for. There's something going on there that is creating that divide. And a lot of it has to do with our experiences are not the same. What ultimately impacts us or ultimately how we walk away has so much to do with our past experience, to who we are in the scenario. Like literally who we are may be different than the person we're dealing with. But the important thing here is to start to pay tremendous attention to what kinds of behaviors feel toxic to you and why. And also, when you're in these situations, how have you shown up? So, when presented with the burnt out leader, how did you respond? So, if that leader came at you screaming, what was your response? How did you show up in this moment? And what did you learn in that space and in that experience? So, that was kind of the intention of the book. And coming into next year, we're going to be doing some more work around the book to help us gain as much self awareness as possible. Because ultimately, in order to create change, to change who you are as a leader, to change culture on your team, to change culture within your organization, you have to start with yourself. And that requires a tremendous amount of self awareness. Okay. Now, I know you're sitting here saying, Kim, that's not rocket science. No, it's not. But truly knowing who you are, how you show up, how it impacts other people is a whole lot of hard work. And it requires dedication. It requires um, bravery and courage because sometimes what's going to come back at us is not going to be something that we like. It's not going to be something we're proud of. And we're going to have to either accept this is who we are and the downstream effects are not what we intend them to be, or we're going to have to be incredibly courageous and say, how do I need to change to have the team, to have the culture that I want? And I talk about this in teams, but this completely applies to any relationship in your life is when you are faced with challenge, drama, chaos, toxicity, how do you show up? And how ultimately is that affecting the outcome of the situation? So the next part of this conversation that I want us to start having is, do we know who we become when placed in these challenging situations? And so ultimately, what I have come to understand is we end up taking on one of three roles, and we may oscillate between these roles. We may be multiple roles in the same situation, but this will make more sense in a second. So I'm going to break it down very basically. So when faced with any situation, each of person is showing up in one of three capacities. So the first I like to call the instigator. So this is the person who is bringing in the chaos, the drama, who's initiating it. I like to think about historically in my past when you're sitting in a room and some kind of meeting's about to start, or maybe it's a project meeting, and that person comes in and they are breathing fire, and every single person in that room is a target. But what they're mad about has nothing to do with about the people in the room. So that's, so it's the person bringing the drama. It's the person having that bad day. It's the person who is dealing with the burnout, but doesn't know that they're burnout. But boy, they're creating chaos for everyone else around them. So the interesting thing about instigators is we never want to think this is us. I have rarely met a person or somebody that I'm working with, and when we're talking about how to navigate some kind of challenging situation where a person said, I think I'm the problem. That has never happened. Um, and so where I want to step back and say is in the moment, we never think it is us. We either want to be all the hero or all the victim. But the truth is, and I say this with complete humility, is that I will hold up my hand and say, I have been the instigator. I have been the one that has brought the drama. Now, in the moment, did I intend to bring the drama? Probably not. I can immediately tell you right now that there are situations where I thought I was doing a good thing. Again, this may come down to intention versus execution. You had a good intent, but how you executed it was completely inappropriate and wrong. But it doesn't change the fact that you were showing up as the aggressor. You are showing up as the hostile person. So hold on to that. So that's the first one. So who is instigating? Who is bringing it? One role. The second role is whoever's receiving it. right? And so usually when I am working with people, this is the role they see themselves in. You know, it and again, it feeds right into I'm the victim or I'm the hero, right? This came to me. This is how I responded. The reality is how you respond when something is brought to you is a huge element of how the chaos, the drama, the toxicity is either escalated or de-escalated. Because we all know somebody who's like, if you bring the fire, I'm coming right back at you, which may be appropriate. But again, come back to intent versus execution and then impact, which is something we'll get to, not today, but to think about. It's not just, did I zing you back? Well, now you're just as aggressive. And what ends up happening when you just keep zinging each other back? It ratchets up, right? And if our goal here as leaders is to figure out how to create cultures that are healthy, our choices are very important. We have lots of choices, regardless if we're the recipient. Particularly if we're the recipient, we have a lot of choices. And what you may choose to do will change depending on the specifics of this scenario, right? So if you're a subordinate, is going to might be a different than if you are the leader, or if you are a peer, or there's different power dynamics. So again, the options could be different. But what you choose is a huge component in whether you are making the situation better or if you're making the situation worse. The last role, which I personally think is maybe the most important role that determines the culture of your team or your organization, are what I term observers. So you're not in it, but you're watching it. It's around you. I like to call these people, it's like, it's not my monkey, not my circus. I'm not touching that with a 10-foot pole, not my problem. Those are very common statements that you hear. Right. So, and we think about observers, we kind of have two extremes. We have that one where people want to avoid it. If it's not directly affecting them, it's not their team member, it's not their peer, it's not their boss. They want to stay out of it. They don't want any blowback from any way, shape, or form of the chaos that's happening. But unfortunately, what you do in these moments also helps determine your culture. If you ignore it as if it's not happening, what message are you sending? Particularly if you are a leader that holds influence and power. So if you do nothing, your actions or your non-actions is sending a message that it's acceptable. Again, you have choices, and your choices have impact. And then the other side of it, because I said there's two extremes to observers, are the people who want to pretend it's not there, and their non-action creates an impact. Equally on the other end are the people who view this as their personal, like, desperate office space, like desperate housewives. Like, they live for this. They come to work for the drama. They may even stir that pot a little bit because, boy, that's so much more fun than doing actual work. Their goal, and they thrive on, like, did you, girl, did you hear what he said? Did you hear what happened? If I could have been a fly on that wall, like, what we used to term water cooler talk, which doesn't really happen anymore. I'm sure what is it now? Are we just IMing each other or texting each other the drama? But the reality is these behaviors are equally have an impact, because what they are doing is they are encouraging and creating a very thriving environment for gossip, drama, versus an environment where you feel that you are safe and respectful, because we all know if they're talking about them to you, they're probably talking about you somewhere else. So again, these actions and what we tolerate, what we allow, what we even through our inaction, has implication. So kind of want you to think about a little bit is right now, I want you to think about a challenging dynamic that you're struggling with. Honestly, think through how are your actions might be perceived. if you were to look at it from the outside, would someone say that maybe you are an instigator? If someone were to look at it from the outside, would you be the recipient? Or in some ways, are you serving as an inactive or as a very active observer? Like, it's still not yours, but boy, you're feeding the fire by talking about it, by maybe perpetuating stories that you don't know are even true. But boy, they sound good. So again, I didn't say that sometimes it didn't feel good to do the wrong thing. Sometimes it feels great doing the wrong thing. But as leaders, we have to be better than that because we are setting the standard for what is okay. We are setting the standard for this is how we expect to speak to each other, to treat each other. So I just want in this episode today is just to plant the seed that if you're in something right now, because goodness knows it's real life, we're always in something, can you take a moment and ask yourself, do I know who I am in this scenario? In this experience, who am I? How am I showing up? Are my choices making the situation better or worse? Be honest. Does it feel good sometimes to do the wrong thing? It's okay to say yes. But then come back and say, if my goal is to create a functional, safe, healthy relationship, environment, team, culture, organization, family, what's the right choice? It may not be the easy choice. It may not be the choice that will feel the best, but it's the right choice in order to create the environment we want to create. All right, so that's my message for you today is I just want you to slow down a little bit when you're finding yourself in these situations and ask yourself, do you know your role? And heaven forbid, we might act, if we're being honest, we may have to raise our hands and say we're starting some stuff. And if that's the case, as I like to say, if it starts with me, it can end with me. If it starts with me, then I can make different choices so the outcome is changing for the people who are around me. So I encourage you to do this. Please, if this resonates with you, if you have questions about it, reach out to me. You can reach out to me at podcast@KimberlyJBenoit.com. You can put a comment down if you're watching this on YouTube. Put something in the comments. I just really encourage you, reach out to me. I want to know what you think about this. Has this been meaningful to you? Does this resonate with you? And have you found it helpful? All right. That's all I got for you today, and I'll be back soon. And until next time, take care, y'all, and be kind to each other. Thank you for joining me on today's episode of We've All Done It. I know your time is valuable. That's why I'm for as little BS as possible. Hopefully, today's episode has sparked some new ideas for you. If you would like to learn more about the We've All Done It leadership framework or how to work with me, please check out my website at KimberlyJBenoit.com. Until next time.